with us. Family time is about your issues and your relationships, your at home family, your community family, and your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will lead to healthy nations. So stay with us and please join in via all our platforms. We've got Facebook, we've got YouTube, and those two are live. And you can also connect with us via Instagram, where you can keep up with what's happening. I'm Roland Gale. And this, as I said, is family time. We know that as adults, children must be monitored in how they use social media. You probably hear that 50 million times a day. But how much do we actually know about the legal aspects of any interaction that children may have on TikTok, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Facebook, all of them things, YouTube, X? Man, there's so many out there. For example, what can happen if we share pictures or videos of minors, especially when they're in a compromising position? And when I say we, I mean me or you and even the child themselves. Do you know there are some things done with or to children on social media platforms that could see a person facing prison or a hefty fine? What happens in real life? What happens here in Jamaica? There is so much that we don't know, or maybe we know and we forgot. But this is a very, very important issue. So today, we're going to have a frank talk about social media, children, and Jamaican law. We're going to begin with a question for you. Want you to tune in and share your thoughts and your comments. And here's a question. What would you describe as a compromising photo of a child? I just said that if we posted a compromising photo, we could find ourselves in big trouble. Well, what is a compromising photo? How would you describe that? Send your responses via WhatsApp text or voice notes that are no longer than 30 seconds. And the number to use is 997-3125. Or you can call our studio lines 968-8327 or 968-8328 and participate that way. And of course, you can also comment on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. Now, we're going to be right back with our special guests, Nicole Gordon and Dominique Martin. Don't go nowhere, right? Stay right here, sir.
Get ready for another inspiring time inside Love in the Morning with me, your host, Jakal Dyer, this Tuesday, January 30. Grab your cup of coffee and start the day right with the Morning Coffee Pick Me Up devotional at 6 a.m. Then at 7 a.m., we bring to you the Morning Watch with intriguing and thought-provoking discussions. At 8:30 a.m. inside The Healthy Way, we discuss clotting in the blood. So stick and stay with us this Island Vibes Tuesday inside Love in the Morning, 5 to 10 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to Family Time. That was a short break. Good. You are listening to Love 101. And welcome to our special guest this evening. Nicole Gordon is an attorney at law with a degree in psychology, and Dominique Martin is Crown Counsel in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And we are happy to welcome them both this evening. That's Nicole Gordon and Dominique Martin. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, welcome. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. This is Dominique speaking. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, listeners. Good afternoon, Jamaica.
Great, great. So good to have you, Dominique. And I am just checking to see if Nicole is on with us. Uh,
Yes.
Hi,
Hi, good
Nicole.
afternoon. How are you? Good afternoon to your listeners. Thank you
Good.
for
It's so good
having
to
me.
have you. It's so good to have you. And you are in studio, which I am happy to see. I am remote. Don't worry about that. We're going to have a good evening. All right. Now,
I'm seeing you
our
now.
what's that?
I said, I'm seeing you.
Oh, great. Great. Our topic is social media, children, and the law. And in that vein, we want to hear from our audience. And your answer to the question, what would you describe as a compromising photo of a child? We really want to hear from you. So send your responses to our WhatsApp lines 997-3125 or our studio lines 968-8327 or 968-8328 and participate with us that way. Let's jump straight into this. I want to bring in Nicole and Dominic. And the first thing I want to ask you, I'm not sure who wants to take this one. What age is considered as a child under the law? What age are we looking at when we talk about children?
I'll take that question, Roland. This is Dominique. As it relates to age, there are three legislations that currently define the or currently defines who is a child. So there is the Sexual Offences Act that defines a child as any person under the age of 18 years in section 2, and in at section 8 it defines a child as a person under 16 years. There is the Care and Protection Act, that the Child Care and Protection Act, that defines a child, male or female, a person under 18 years. There is also the Child Pornography Prevention Act that defines a child as a person under the age of 18 years.
Okay, so they are somewhat consistent, except for the part where you said there is it under the
Sexual
Sexual Offences Act, there is the age 16 for a particular thing,
for a particular offense. So
for
that
a particular
offense
offense.
is sexual interference or touching of a child.
Oh, okay. Can you tell us why there would be that difference? Do you know why that difference is included in the law?
I cannot say for certain, but on my interpretation of the legislation, Section 8 prescribes a stricter responsibility. So it indicates or stipulates rather that a child is considered a person under the age of 16 years for specific instances. So, instances where you are inciting a child as an adult to touch you in a sexual manner, or you're inciting the child to touch themselves in a sexual manner. So it stipulates here that a child is considered to be a person under 16 years.
And I'd also want to add that, so generally speaking, the age of majority is 18 years old. Uh, that some people consider it to be a bit of an anomaly, depending on the perspective that you take. This idea, for example, uh, uh, the matter of health, adolescent health. I know that's not what we're talking about, but you don't have to wait until 18, for example, to decide on certain things pertaining to your health. Some of those things can happen at age 16. So you do find little anomalies in the law that perhaps need to be addressed, certain gaps sometimes that you'll find, and Dominic probably will tell us about some in the legislations that we're going to deal with today. But sometimes those anomalies do exist. The age of criminal responsibility, for example, is lower than 16. It's actually 14. It's 14, right?
I would want to think it's
Or
12 years
12,
old.
right? The age
12,
of for criminal responsibility
12
is
years old.
12. So for different categories of activities, we do have different ages, but the age of majority is 18. And so the Child Care and Protection Act is clear that you're a child until you're 18 years old.
All right, so I'm just wanting to focus on a particular thing, not going to spend too much time on it. But you just mentioned that there is an age of criminal responsibility, I think is a term you used,
Yes.
correct? Yeah. And that age is 12 years old.
Yes, it is.
So under the other acts that you mentioned, like the Sexual Offences Act, the Care and Protection Act, and the Child Pornography Act, if a child under the age of say 14 does something, they can be charged as adults even under these other acts here.
Yes, they can. As long as they're above the age of 12 years old, you are
Right.
criminally responsible. So
Wow.
the legislation that governs the issue, children social media, it covers both adults and children.
Right. Right. Wow, that puts a different kind of perspective on what the discussion that we're having now, because I was thinking initially that all kinds of penalties or bad things would be attributed to who we normally call adult. But if a child at over the age of 12 can be held criminally responsible, then we really are lowering the age at which we have to be very careful what we do. Is that correct?
Most certainly, and that is why education is important. That is why we have to have parents know how to manage children in this digital age, because most certainly we cannot stop the children from using social media, but we have to manage them. We have to make it our primary responsibility. We're living in a new age where everybody has a tablet, everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a laptop, computer, some sort of device that connects you to the internet. So parents now have to step up, and we have to educate them that we have to supervise our children, we have to authorize what they post, and we have to manage what they post.
Right. That's some serious stuff. All right, so we want to kind of go ahead and move on to the other things we want to find out. How does the law define types of images? Abusive images, compromising, offensive, obscene. Those are words that may come to mind. How does the law define those things?
Well, in relation to obscene images, there is the Cybercrimes Act. So, Section 9 of the Cybercrimes Act touches and concerns malicious communication, and it stipulates, in essence, or prevents rather, the posting of any obscene image on any computer device. So, obscene here can be defined as anything that is sexual in nature, anything that tends to offend the morality of society or corrupt the moral influence of society. And so, Section 9 of the Cybercrimes Act does not only apply to children, it also applies to adults. In the Child Prevention Pornography Act, that act defines sexual activity, or it prevents the possession, publication of any activity, visual or audio, that depicts a child or anyone appearing to be a child engaging in sexual activity or display of any genital area of a child. So, in that way, the Cybercrimes Act and the Child Pornography Prevention Act, they work alongside each other to prevent obscene images of children being posted on social media platforms.
Okay. Is there a difference between an offensive image or an obscene image as far as the law is concerned? Or do they fall under the same category?
The the issue with this now is that offensive is not defined, only
Great.
obscene
Okay.
is defined. But
Understood.
it really depends on the image itself and what it
Right.
is being displayed. So generally, if it is offensive, it can be sexual, but not
Mhm.
because it's offensive. Not because it is offensive means that it is sexual.
Understood. Right. Um, These things are somewhat subjective. That's
They
a question.
There really are. And so when you talk about social media, children being posted on social media platforms in compromising position, it really is a case by case analysis. And so that is why we have to, in practical circumstances, we have to get the necessary reports to look at the image, have the discussion, and assess the case to see if we're able to mount a successful prosecution in each matter.
In each specific case. You've put my mind to some real thinking now. Um, Children have a right to privacy, do they? Or is it that children don't have any privacy in my house, but they need to have privacy on the internet?
That is a very good question. And I will always say children are human beings just as how adults are human beings. And as adults, we have the right to privacy, though it is not absolute. And the same thing extends to children. Children ought to be protected, their information, their image, any information that can lead to their identification, school, any other personal information ought to be protected on and offline. And so they do have a right to privacy. And parents, guardians, and any adults who supervises children should ensure that their right to privacy is protected in all circumstances.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense to me. I have a child, and if I am listening to this program now, would it be useful for me to call my child and say, "Hey, come listen to this"?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is important because a huge part of helping children to protect themselves involves education. We have to educate our children. They have to know about the harmful effects of social media. Social media use comes with positive effects, and we are aware of those positive effects. Getting to meet other people, education, researching, but they also need to know about the harmful effects of cyberbullying, the possibility of human trafficking, the possibility of information in relation to their identity being stolen, the possibility of meeting people who would want to take advantage of them in sexual ways. And so, without educating them, without supervising them, they will not know what to do. And so, if and when something happens on the internet, you don't want them to go to the wrong persons for help. You want them to come to you as the parent, as the guardian, as the supervisor, because usually comfort comes from home and you do not want them to seek comfort in other people. So, this would be a good program for them to listen so they can know the do's and the don'ts, and parents can know. And I call it the STAM approach: the supervise, the authorize, and the managing of social media.
I love that. The SAM approach: supervise, authorize,
And
and manage.
yes.
Excellent. And that's so simple to remember. I remembered it as you said it. I remembered it.
Share,
I
share.
love that. All right. So here is the thing now. When we started, you referred to some different documents, some legal documents, the Child Porn Prevention Act. You spoke about the Care and Protection Act for Children, and another act, the Sexual Offences Act.
Yeah.
Sorry. What actual laws govern social media in Jamaica?
Well, it's a combination of laws. So there is no specific law that guides how children and adults should use social media in Jamaica.
Oh,
The Cybercrimes Act, Section 9, deals with malicious communication of any data through any computer, any electronic means posted online for a malicious purpose, and that tends to contain any obscene image that tends to, and it is done with the intention to harm or cause potential harm. So that is an important piece of legislation because it deals with posting on any electronic media and the information in relation to where the information is coming from. So the information doesn't have to come from a computer in the strictest sense. It can come from a phone, it can come from a tablet. So that is the broadest legislation, or the legislation that is the widest in terms of its ambit. But the Child Pornography Prevention Act deals with specifically the possessing, the distributing, the taking part in the activity of itself that concerns a child being engaged in sexual offenses or the display of any private area of the child.
Right. Okay. Um, Something has come to mind, and it has to do with the whole matter of AI. Nowadays, you can capture a person's voice or capture a person's image and use it in ways that the person never intended and had never actually done. Is that addressed in the law as well?
Most certainly, that is also addressed in the Child Pornography Prevention Act. And also, that would fall within the ambit of Section 9 of the Cybercrimes Act. So, the Child Pornography Prevention Act doesn't only deal with visual representation, it also deals with audio. Any audio that tends to depict a child or is in relation to any specific child of a sexual nature, that can also be a criminal act. And as I said, the Cybercrimes Act is wide. It captures audio and visual acts.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Um, one of the things I am thinking about here now is that our kids often don't recognize the seriousness of things. How are we trying to impress on our kids how serious some of these issues are from a I'm going to say a government perspective? How are we trying to do that?
Well, from a government perspective, I know that there are different agencies. There is the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. There is the Office of the Children's Advocate. There is the Children's Registry. And I know that those agencies, they do training. And if it is that a child particularly needs training, they offer training services and also counseling too. I know the probation aftercare officers offer counseling. Usually, though, it is done on a cause and effect basis. So it usually is done once a breach happens and not necessarily before. So generally speaking, more can be done in terms of the general education of parents and training, so that parents can become more aware. But the long and short of that is, I know that there are training and counseling services offered to parents and children who interface with these various stakeholders.
Um,
I like, yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
no, I was just thinking that I don't want to take it a step further because I don't think we've even begun to scratch the surface, quite frankly, in this matter of digital media and the digital space. When we think of some other countries, for example, there's a concept of digital literacy because the whole idea of social media is that you want to form connectedness and community. That's really what social media is about. It's simply being social on that form of media. And the whole foundation of it is that you want to connect with someone. And the fact of the matter is that in the same way that we teach children how to communicate and work and function, both ethically, legally, morally, in the normal day-to-day setting, whether it's in the schoolyard, whether it's in the home, and that sort of thing, is really the same way that you have to develop literacy in the context of a digitized world. So, for example, there's another concept of digital citizenship. That's where we're heading. There's a concept of having a digital footprint, the footprint that begins from when a mother decides that she's going to put her child's ultrasound in the public space. I mean, you mentioned the matter of privacy earlier. So I don't think we've begun to scratch the surface with some of these issues. And if we're going to talk about literacy, in a real way. It really has to be one of the areas of literacy that we have to very extensively talk about after a while. It's not just going to be mathematics and English. I was sort of looking at the issue and I realized that in I think it's California, they're contemplating legislation on digital literacy where they're saying that schools are mandated to, or that's what they want, to teach how do you appropriately function when you are in this space. What are the things that you are supposed to say? If you get a video or you see a YouTube channel, are you supposed to pass that video on to somebody else when their face is showing? What are you supposed to do? Can you harass somebody in that digital space? How are you supposed to respond if you are harassed? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying completely.
It is a completely different world. It's a different space. And
Well, sorry, I don't want to cut you, but let's back up a bit to something you said a little while ago about the digital citizen. As citizens of any nation, as citizens of any kind of group, we tend to have laws and regulations that govern the behavior and the maybe the objectives, maybe the actions of people who are part of that group. Is there such a general understanding or set of guidelines for social media generally,
worldwide, you mean, or in
worldwide
Jamaica?
or here in Jamaica? Let's begin with here in Jamaica. Is there such a thing?
Nothing that I know of that specific to social media.
No, there's
And
no.
that's the point that I'm making when I say we have
Right,
begun to scratch the surface. So we
right.
have these other legislations, for example, that Dominic has spoken about, and there are aspects of what can happen in the digital space that can fall under these legislations, like the cybercrime legislation.
Oh, sorry. No. Let me ask the question a different way.
Sorry.
Um, some of these legislations, or I would venture to say most of them, are prohibitive in nature. You're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. What I'm asking is if there is some kind of understanding or some kind of outline as to how we are to act as citizens of this digital community
In Jamaica, no.
in Jamaica. No. Is there anything elsewhere that you have seen or heard?
I think there's work being done elsewhere. Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Steps are
okay.
being taken in other spaces.
Especially in New York,
Yes.
as it is.
Yeah, steps are being taken in other spaces to cover that ground. It's just that we have not gotten there as yet, but we have to.
Are we playing catch up in that regard now?
Most certainly, because as we are now, we know that this is the age of data, this is the age of technology. We're living in Generation Z, where everybody
I don't know which letter we're at right now.
where everybody is living in the digital age. And
This
so
morning I heard alpha, so we've gone all the way back around to the start.
we are far behind. There's work to be done.
There is work to be done. All right, so that brings us to another question. Sorry, Nicole, were you finished the point you were going to make?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, so that brings us to the next point now, and that point we're going to have to pick up on it after the break, because the truth is that we have been flying and it is almost 6 o'clock. And so what I want to let our listeners know is that you are listening to Family Time, and this is live on Love 101 FM. We have our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, and Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries. For our social media interaction, which is so cool, we want you to share on this question. What would you describe as a compromising photo of a child? Just tell us what you think and send your voice notes or your texts via WhatsApp to 997-3125, or you can comment on the Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. Just go in the comments and type in your comment there. All right, we want to hear from you. Now, this evening, our topic is social media, children, and the law. It's break time, but just before the break, we're going to have word to flesh moments with Reverend Mike. So don't go anywhere, all right?
The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This important scriptural principle highlights the importance of attending to our children in the early years so that as they mature, they will not be led astray. Matthew 18:6 declares, whoever causes one of these little ones to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. In other words, anyone who causes a child to go astray, it would be better to commit suicide than continue living. In effect, the scriptures are teaching us that God, our Creator, places great importance on the proper rearing of our children. Some time ago at a school that I direct, a 6-year-old child was introduced to pornography on the internet by his 16-year-old sister. Both were usually left unattended by mom and dad in the evening hours after school. The 6-year-old brought what he had been watching to our school and acted it out with 2 of his friends. The parents were called into a meeting and they encouraged me to beat it out of them picnic. I let them know that if a beating was going to take place, they would be the ones who would be beaten, for they had failed to provide proper guidance for both children. Jamaica's Child Care and Protection Act makes it an offense if a child is not protected from harmful influences, abuse, and exploitation. Let's be careful as we raise our children, for you may find that your failure may cause you to face the long arm of Jamaican law or the longer arm of the eternal God and Creator of all of us. I'm Reverend Mike from Fellowship Tabernacle, and we just had a WTF moment.
After 6 days of creating and creating and creating, who wouldn't need some rest? Most of us would have probably buzzed halfway through the first thing created. Well, maybe God didn't need rest, but yet He did. What deep meaning did God want us to learn? Tuesday, January 30 on The Rock, join guests Angela and Homer Slack as they discuss the topic, the creation story. Then He rested. That's The Rock, Tuesday, January 30 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Something smells good.
When you're cooking or baking, begin with the best. The trusted tradition of Benjamin's vanilla flavorings and colorings. Mix it, stir it, blend it all around and create something spectacular. Whether you're making cakes, custards, puddings, punches, or savory meals, Benjamin's vanilla flavorings and colorings add that special touch to everything. And here's something else special. Benjamin's ginger, nutmeg, cinnamon, anise, and mixed spice are now available in liquids.
Yes, everything tastes better with Benjamin's.
Benjamin's, a trusted name for over a century.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. You are listening to our discussion on social media, children and the law. And we have with us 2 very special guests. We have Nicole Gordon and Dominic Martin, who have been just sharing so much information and such insightful comments with us that we are very happy to have them on. And remember, we want to hear from you, our listeners. I'm sure if you have any questions that you want to ask, our guests will be happy to answer them as you share your questions with us. At the break, we heard from Reverend Mike, and he said something that I was actually going to go and touch on. He said when the children at his school were found to be involving themselves in something they shouldn't, it was the responsibility of the parents. And I'd like for you guys to just talk to us a bit about the responsibility of our parents, our guardians, our teachers when it comes to children and social media.
Well, I'd start with the legislation that he actually spoke to, which Dominic mentioned earlier, which is the Child Care and Protection Act, because I really think it's so important. It is based on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which Jamaica ratified a very long time ago. And that convention outlines the rights of children. And previously you had asked about whether children have the right to privacy. Yes, they have the right to have a family, and a home, a peaceful home. So when it is that a parent, for example, harasses a child, and this happens because they want to put them on social media, to me, that is a little bit of an invasion of their right to their privacy. And we have to think about that too, because children are extremely vulnerable. I do want to make this point from the Child Care and Protection Act, because he said it, and you're asking about the responsibility of parents and the community. The Child Care and Protection Act essentially makes it a community responsibility, this matter of the care of the child. So I really want to read the words, because the words are important. And this is section 6.2. It says, any person who has information which causes that person to suspect that a child has been, is being, or is likely to be abandoned, neglected, or physically or sexually ill-treated. So it's not as strict as the Sexual Offences Act. It's not as strict as the Child Pornography Act. Or is otherwise in need of care and protection. And they explain what that means too. Shall, not maybe, not if you want to, not if you feel like it, not if tomorrow is Sunday or Monday. Shall, it's mandatory, make a report to the registry. They impose as well a very important responsibility on what they call prescribed persons. And these include a physician, nurse, administrator at a hospital, a school principal, a teacher, social worker, employee in a child daycare center, guidance counselor. It says a prescribed person who, in the discharge of that person's duty, acquires information that ought reasonably. So it means that you have to bring your training to bear on the matter if you're a prescribed person. That ought reasonably to cause that person to suspect. The burden is higher on the prescribed person. That a child has been, is being, or is likely to be abandoned, neglected, or physically or sexually ill-treated, or is otherwise in need of care and protection, shall, again, make a report to the registry. And of course, this is the registry associated with the Office of the Children's Advocate.
Right. Okay. A quick question, because you lost me at a point.
Mhm.
Who is a prescribed person again, and what is that higher burden that is placed on them?
Sure.
Who is a prescribed person?
So the prescribed person, I'll go slowly, my apologies. A physician, a physician, nurse, dentist, or mental health professional.
Oh, so the prescribed person is the one who receives the report?
No, not necessarily. It's an administrator of a hospital facility, a school principal, teacher, or other teaching professional, a social worker or other social service professional, an owner, operator, or employee of a child daycare center or other child care institution, a guidance counselor, or any other person who, by virtue of his employment or occupation, has a responsibility to discharge a duty of care towards a child.
Understood now. Okay.
Additional responsibility is that because of that individual's training, everybody else, like you or me, if it is that we suspect, and it's a very general word, suspect that a child has been or is being or likely to be abandoned and so on, we should make a report.
Right.
For the prescribed person, if in their duties they acquire information, and this is it now, that ought reasonably to cause. So it means that because of your training, you're supposed to think in a way. So you see a particular thing, and if you think about it properly, as a reasonable professional,
As a trained person. Yeah.
yes, as a trained person,
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
context of reasonableness, you should suspect that this
Right,
thing is happening.
right.
You shall make a report.
And shall and must are similar words in this case.
Yes, as different
Okay.
from may.
Right, correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so we really have a huge responsibility as individuals in various walks of life to look out for our kids and ensure that they don't fall prey to miscreants and people who would wish to do them various types of harm. And this applies to identifying where even a child's own parent may be doing something that isn't right. That's a question.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. Where and when would the courts intervene? At what point would a court come into play?
Once the right of a child or rights of children are breached and the report is made to the relevant stakeholders, the police, the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, the Office of the Children's Advocate, and any other suitable authority, and that matter is investigated and a person is charged for the breach of the rights of the children, then the person is brought before the court. Usually the person is brought before the parish court, and if it is a matter where the circuit court assumes jurisdiction later, then a committal proceedings will be done. And if it is that a parent has breached the rights of a child, then that parent too can be brought before the court, the parish court, or the child can also be brought before the court as a child in need of care and protection.
Can I also add that this whole matter of child protection, the basis of it, and this is in the Convention of the Rights of the Child too, is the best interest principle. So the idea is that in all things, it is the best interest of the child that is paramount. And so even in the Child Care and Protection Act, which really was a groundbreaking legislation, it clearly says that when you're looking at issues pertaining to the child, the least restrictive and the least disruptive course of action is the one that is taken. So if it is that you have a challenge, for example, pertaining to a child, the first course of action is not to grab up the parent and send the parent to court. The first course of action is not to grab up the child and remove them from the home. Because
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that.
no, it's not. Because when you're dealing with the matter of children, it is the best interest principle that is predominant. And so, in all things, you ask yourself, what is best for this child? And there are certain precepts there. I mean, family is best for the child, community is best for the child, being in school is best for the child. So if you don't have to send that child to a home and they can somehow stay in the home that they have become comfortable in, you find a way to navigate that. If it is that you can find an aunt that is comfortable, you find some way to do that before you even get to the court stage. If the children's services become involved.
But Nicole, it all depends on the circumstances.
Absolutely.
All depends on the circumstances of each case.
It does. I completely agree. But I think there's some underlying sort of fundamental ideas when the best interest principle is applied.
Absolutely. I hear you. And I love where we are right now in the discussion. Unfortunately, we are up on another break, or fortunately, we're up on another break. And when we come back, we're going to have another perspective, another look at the whole social media and the children issue. And as I said, we're heading into our final break now. And we want to hear from our listeners. And the question is this: what would you describe as a compromising photo of a child. So just contact us, let us know, and we're going to be with you on the other side of this break.
Looking for the next big couples event? Join the New Foundation Christian Ministries Together We Thrive Couples Fest 2024. Enjoy live music showcase, couples sound clash at Summit Kingston, February 10th at 7 p.m. Tickets $7,000 per couple, inclusive of light refreshments. Sponsored by Summit Kingston, Mattox Health and Fitness, Edgelights Media, and Immaculate Modeling Agency. For tickets, call 876-571-8217.
Welcome back. You are tuned to Love 101, and this is Family Time, and it's brought to you by Family Life Ministries. We have with us two very special guests, Ms. Nicole Gordon and Ms. Dominique Martin, and it's great to have you both on. I'm just enjoying this conversation, despite the fact that it is a very heavy topic, and I want us to take a quick look at how the child interacts with social media and what are some things you would want to say about that. So if we have, for example, a youngster who is in, say, grade 8 or grade 9 in a high school, they may be between the ages of, say, 13 and 14, and they are now exploring their own expressiveness. They are learning to interact with friends, and they take some pictures of themselves and they're posting it. What are some things you would comment on? What are some things you would say? Some guidelines that you would want to give these children?
First, I'll say that education, I started there and I will end there. They have to know that it is illegal to post certain images, obscene images, images that display genital areas of a child or anyone else. So they have to know what is right and what is wrong. And for them to know what is right and what is wrong, they have to be educated. And so we have to educate them in the home, we have to educate them in the school, at church, wherever they are. And so the first call of action would be education, counseling. Depending on the nature of the matter, we hope that it doesn't get to a stage where the law is involved. But if it gets to that stage, we will find the outcome that is in the best interest of that child. And usually the approach when it concerns a child is not necessarily to impose a fine automatically on the child or to impose imprisonment, but for a young child who is in breach of this nature, usually counseling, parental classes, and usually there's also a child diversion program that a child who is in breach of certain offenses can benefit from. And so that program would offer them the requisite counseling and training that would, prevent them from being imprisoned or fined or, be or exposed to the more serious consequences of the law, so to speak.
All right, understood. Go ahead.
No, I would also want to say, the other aspect of the education, which I think is very, very critical, as Dominic mentioned, is that teenagers have to bear in mind the permanence of some of the things that they actually put on social media. This matter of the digital footprint, it's real. The idea that employers go onto Facebook, they go onto Instagram. And guess what? You may think that because you're 16, it's not going to come back. But guess what?
It never disappears.
It never disappears. So you can do it when you're 16. But when you're 30 and when you're 25 and you're looking for a job, guess what your employer going to do?
Go on your Facebook.
Absolutely.
Go on the Instagram. Type in your name, look at the images that were posted, and it is going to come right back.
Clear as day. So they have to understand too, a part of the education has to be some of the inherent risks.
Absolutely, understood that. And I want us to go a little deeper than that. if it is that I am a youngster who is 16 years old and I'm beginning to say, I am a big man now. I don't want nobody tell me nothing. And I have my WhatsApp account and I begin to take photographs and share with my friends on WhatsApp. What's wrong with that? Because it's only me and my friends have these pictures, have these videos. I don't see any problem with that. And I'm a big man now.
Well, everything is wrong with that until the police catch you. So when the police catch you, you can know then that under the Child Pornography Prevention Act, you are looking at a term of imprisonment up to 20 years.
Yeah, but
And
it's my phone and it's me.
well, the content of what you have in your phone, if it is depicting a child or someone appearing to be a child of a sexual nature, then you are going to know that that is an illegal act and you are going to face the consequences. So if it is that you don't want to listen, if it is that you feel like, oh, yes, I'm an adult, no, I can do that. No, the law is there to protect children and it's also there to protect you from yourself. So you will have to face the consequences.
Is the law allowed to access my phone and my WhatsApp without my permission?
Well, you have a right to privacy, but that is not an absolute right. So if it
Right.
is that there is a suspected breach or reasonable cause to search your phone, yes, the law is allowed to do that. So there has to be a balancing exercise. So you can't say, oh, I am allowed to have anything I want in my phone because me a big man now, me a 16. And at the same time, you're breaching the rights of another child. So it doesn't work that way. The law has to balance. And so the balance will be exercised in the favor of the child whose rights is being breached.
Whose rights are being breached?
Yes.
Understood. Understood. I just wanted us to kind of take another look at social media itself. And I was reading about some negative effects. It says that if youngsters use the social media platforms for more than 3 hours a day, it increases their depression, it increases other negative emotions by up to 40% or over 40%. Is there anything like that that we have to be wary of and concerned about with our kids here in Jamaica? Any statistics you know of, anything that
I don't have any
will
statistics, but I wouldn't be surprised. Our teenagers are teenagers. The
right?
teenagers fundamentally are the same wherever they are. And quite frankly, if I must speak anecdotally, and perhaps Dominique would share this, perhaps you would share this as well. When I talk to a lot of teenagers, boy, the mental health issues are real. In particular, you find a lot of anxiety often. You find a lot of depression among our teenagers, which it's a part of that time of life. But at the same time, I kind of said to myself, well, did I hear it as much from my friends when I was that age? And I think to myself, no, not really. This, you know, how they talk about the likes
Yes,
and
yes.
how it is that you kind of just wait in an
Living for the
agitated and
likes.
excited way because people are supposed to respond to you. I also wonder, quite frankly, about, and I mentioned earlier about this matter of social media being social and this matter of connectedness and how real that is. Sometimes I wonder about the depth of the connections that we find on social media and how it is then that when it is that you're in, for want of a better word, real life situations and are expected to connect with the person beside you, like I'm touching Dominique, how that interplay works and how that will affect today's teenager when they're 25 and when they're 30. I wonder and worry, quite frankly, about those things, Dominic.
Because, Nicole, when you interact with most teenagers now, they're socially awkward. They don't know how to have a conversation with you. They don't know how to express themselves. And that is because it's all about the WhatsApp, it's all about the internet, the Facebook, everything. And so we have to recognize that there are a lot of harmful effects psychologically and emotionally.
And then there's the matter of, in addition to that, there's a matter of the possibility of economic exploitation, because when you put yourself out there like that, we didn't talk about the human trafficking part of it, because
That's
that
a
needs
whole
to be
different
another show.
discussion.
But you talk about this matter of trafficking, child labor, sexual exploitation, being accessible to pedophilia. When you're out there, there is a lot of identity fraud because of the amount of information that you put out. And I say to myself that there is going to be a very, very heavy need, and I wonder if we're prepared for it. But I think there's going to be a very heavy need for psychologists and just people dealing with. You hear people talking about mental health a lot nowadays. I can't imagine that there is a disconnect. If it is that we're in this digital age, I don't really think that there's that disconnect. I think some of the mental health issues that we have is because of how we interact or don't interact in that space. And we have to take it seriously. I think we're behind, quite frankly. That's my view. And because my history is to look at a public health approach to any sort of crisis that looks like a health crisis, and in all, primary care is preventive.
Yeah,
That's where you start. You start with preventive care, and I don't
absolutely.
find that we're there. And for me,
Right.
that's a bit of a concern.
And just to educate any children and parents listening, there's also a campaign that is going on now by Quiet Perry. Quiet Perry is one of those social media influencers who he's doing a watch where you post campaign, and he's going into schools and he's educating children on, the harmful effects of social media and the lasting effects of what you put out on social media platform. So he must be commended, and that is something that children must pay attention to. And so we ask that you tune in, follow him on Instagram, look and educate yourself on how to watch what you post on social media.
Excellent. Thank you very much. For our listeners and for parents and guardians, are there any resources that you could direct them to in particular in terms of social media and their children? Anything that you can tell them to go look at or check out?
Well, the legislations are online. The Ministry
Right.
of Justice website, the Houses of Parliament website, and also they can check out the Jamaica Constabulary Force Instagram page. From time to time, they will post about social media, children coming into contact with the law. And so, that can be helpful. And I just encourage them to read generally, find useful information that is on the internet. The information is out there. Sit with your children, connect with them, have family time with them, dedicate time so you can use social media with them, check their privacy accounts, the Instagram that they're using, the WhatsApp, the Facebook. Check those privacy settings. Ensure that their information is being protected as parents. Invest also in cybersecurity, so that if it is that your children are at home and they are using the various devices in your home, those devices are safe and that their information will not be stolen, and it lessens the risk of human trafficking and identity theft. And so, again, I will advise on the SAM approach, parents. SAM: supervise, authorize, and manage your children's social media platforms.
Love it. Thank you very much. Any last words? 30 seconds, Nicole.
I agree with everything Dominic says. Basically, listen, the parents need to be as good as their children at social media. They have to get it. They have to understand that. You have to be as
Excellent.
good.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. Nicole Gordon and Dominic Martin, thank you very much for joining us. And I just want to tell our listeners that for more information on the services of the Family Life Ministry, you can contact our counselors in Kingston and other parts of the island by reaching out to our head office at 920-1034 or 926-8101. And you can make appointments and get information on costs and so on. Check us out on Facebook and on Family Life Ministries. And of course, I want to leave you with a Bible verse, Ephesians chapter 6, verses 12 to 13. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This is Family Life, Family Time. I'm Roland. Thanks for being with us.